we're going to be tying another salmon fly, and I'm going to be pulling it out of this book right here, this Farlows Salmon Flies book. This is a relatively new book, maybe in the last 2-3 years it came out. It's an illustrated catalog of Farlows pattern salmon flies, 1870-1964. And that's really what it is. It's documentation of Farlows is a tackle company from the UK. And this is like a book that documents the actual flies that they sold back during this time period, and all the pictures in here are of flies from their vault, I guess, where they keep all the flies. And it's like a historical record. This book. It's not a picture of a super beautiful looking fly. It's a fishing fly that's, 50 to 150 years old. So it's more documentation than it is beautiful, but it's information. It's really interesting, and you really get to see what people actually fished. And there's some information about it, about the fly, but there's no recipes. This is something that's interesting about it. There's no recipes in this book. It's just documentation of the fly. And I mean, you see the picture and you can figure out what's in it. Very rarely can you not figure it out. If the fly is really destroyed, sometimes the Martin O'Keefe is the author. He'll note something that this is X. But other than that, it's just the pictures and information about the fly, maybe where it came from. What is it labeled? What is it called? Really amazing, a really amazing book. And when you go through this thing, I mean, there are so many flies in here. It's ridiculous how many flies. And I'm always looking through this book because it's just got so much information. And the other day I was flipping to it and I saw this fly called the Warrior right here. And I said, this thing is basically like that Lord Mayor of London. Instead of a Hairwing yellow and orange and red, it's a married yellow, orange, and red. It's got the seal body, yellow, orange, and red. It's got a yellow floss in front of the in front of the Hurl. This one happens to have a veiling over it of Indian crow, but that's really the only difference. Obviously, it doesn't have two sets of eyes, but it's a shorter fly. It's got a throat. The throat is not red and teal, it's just yellow, but essentially it's the same sort of thing. And I thought it would be cool to tie this. I think it would be fun to tie this fly because it's very much like the Lord Mayor of London. Just smaller and a couple of differences here and there. But you really can find some awesome fly. I've never heard of this fly, Warrior. I've never heard of it. It says this pattern with which Percy H. Wormald killed on April 6, 1891, a 35-pound salmon. And so we know the pattern's older than 1891, so it's an old pattern. And it's also interesting that when you look through this book, they have the actual size of the fly, right? So they'll put, see, it says the actual size right here. This one says actual size, 1 1/4 inches. They didn't put the size like, oh, this is a number 2, because you just never know. I mean, who knows what a number 2 is. So, but one of the cool things is that you get to see how, since all these are fishing flies, they're all small. I mean, very rarely do you see a fly that's big. I mean, look at this one right here. Look how complicated this one is. Look at that right there. And it says here, actual size, 1 inch. I mean, jeez. and the name of this one is just unidentified. There is no name for it in there. But man, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on in this thing, and it was tiny, 1 inch long. It's really amazing. All right, we're doing a blind eye hook. This is the hook I'm using. John hates these hooks because it's got the drop point. I'm going to start out with, the tag is blue, but after that, it's all kind of yellow based. So I'm just going to go with yellow taper now. There's no reason to put on a blue and then change the yellow and then change the black. It's kind of ridiculous. So I'm going to tie on here. And I'm going to put the gut on now too. Now, obviously I'm not going to be fishing this fly, but I do want to put the gut on a good amount. Sometimes for like display purposes, some people tie it on. I've done it before. They just tie the gut on just up here. But we're gonna put it on because it's mostly a dubbing body. But I don't want to. I want to make sure that I have the taper right. So it's a floss butt and it's a floss neck section after the hurl, and then it goes seal. A good trick of tapering is that when you put this gut in, if the ends aren't aligned, you essentially are going to create a taper. So this side is back here, and then this side is a little bit up, maybe, I don't know, 3/16 or so. That's going to help you create a taper. And when we get up to the front, we'll tie this in. If you see, it's a little bit loose right here, but that's just because I don't want to go up there just yet. Alright, first part of this tag is I'm going to use a wire. It's probably like a super small oval, but a small wire or a medium wire. Probably actually with this one, a small wire is probably fine. And I'm going to start it before the inside of this barb. And I'm going to put the tag end to not past the point of the hook. And we're going to hit this with a little bit of super glue just to make sure it doesn't move on us. Maybe one more. So, blue. This is the one I got. It's a French silk. It's a Lagerton. This is a multi-strand, so we don't need all the strands. Sometimes it's annoying when you got these multi-strands. It kind of requires you to cut off the whole piece, then split it. And unless you're tying a multiple number of these flies, you really, I mean, like, what are you going to do with this little piece that you have left? You're going to put it on your desk and let it sit there for a year until you need it again? So sometimes you just got to just chuck it. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. A good trick is if you get yourself a little baggie and when you're done with the floss, put the floss in the bag with the actual, with this. So take this and the cut off and put it in a bag. I do that with wire, I do that with oval tinsel. Like for instance this right here, see this? This is tinsel that we're going to be using. Well, I have a piece that I used. I just took that cut off and put it in this bag with it so you don't lose it. Oh yeah, we've got a mess here now. As I was talking to you, this thing just wrapped around. Okay. See, the yellow thread really doesn't matter when you're going back and then forward. with the silk. Alright, the tail on this is crest. I have 3 together, but I did pull off a lot of the fibers that were short. So in reality, it's not really 3 anymore. And we're going to make this decently long. Let's get it on there and see. I didn't really treat these, so they're just right off the head. So they have kind of a little twist in them. But that seemed to work out okay. And the next part of it is tippet. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put the tippet on like this. Some people like to do this, but then the inside of the feather shows, and the inside of the feather is not. It's not as bright and vibrant as the outside. So we're going to go outside. Now I left it on the stem. You just bring all the fibers together. It makes sure that the bands are all lined up. See that? It's on the stem, so all the bands are going to be lined up, and when you pull them all together, it makes it really nice and bright. Let's take that and then let's grip it like this. This is tricky because you don't want to mess up the crest, but seems okay. Now it's possible that there might just be a few too many fibers, so it's easy to. Now we're going to get some Hurl on there, but first we're going to make sure that this is black. And then we're going to go back. I think I just put too many turns on there. Hurl. Mini Hurl. This fly is definitely small enough to use a mini Hurl. Let's get this. Is it? Okay, it's laying flat right away. I love that. Just a little super glue to make sure that it sticks, and it, because these things can be definitely prone to breaking. Now I like to use a little tiny hackle plier for these. As you can see, that broke, but I had it on the tip. So I want to use my fingers here because I think it's going to be. I think it's sometimes it's definitely less prone to breaking when you use your fingers because they don't have the weight of this of the hackle tool. But you just can't, if you can't get a grip on it, you can't get a grip. This thing is so small. The mini Hurl lengths are extremely short. So that might be all I'm going to get. That was 4 turns, I think. It's what seems like oval oval tinsel, just oval around this piece of floss, and then it's flat and oval over the dubbing part. So I have, like I was saying before, I keep any cut-offs in the bag with it. So this small piece I'm going to use just for the floss part. So it's a yellow floss. And I'm going to make sure this is on the bottom. I'm going to leave a space there so that I can go behind it. Alright, floss, yellow. And this is a 4-strand floss, but it's only one strand of the 4-strand because 4-strand is extremely thick. Oh, there's one little fiber in here. When you run it through your fingers, anything that's like out of place with the floss, it'll bring it back together. If it jumps on you, go back. It's not a big deal. We're going to go back a little bit over it because we don't need that much. I'm actually going to wrap this now. They show 2. I think I'll get 2 in there. Yeah. Let's take a look here. Back. There's 2 on my side, but not on your side. So I think I really want to make sure that there's 2 on your side as well. Which just means a straighter turn. That's all. There it is. And we need to put the veiling on. It's crow. We're not going to use crow. We're going to use a sub. This is a Weaver. It's a pretty good sub. So I mean, it's natural. So it's the color that it is. It's not dyed. But it's not exactly. I mean, it's not. It's close, but it's not exact. Yeah, this is 3. If you wick them, it'll keep them together. And just hold it on with a turn and make sure it's on top. And actually, I'll probably turn this one on with black thread just by darkening this up. Because after this, goes the hurl. We need another thing of hurl. One good way to get these things to line up is if you lick your finger right here and drop 2 of them on there. See, it's going to stick because your finger's wet, and that'll allow you to make sure the other one lines up when you put it on there. See that? So if you put one on your finger, like lick your finger, put one on, then take the next one, drop it on there, and next one and drop it on. Do it, fairly quickly because you don't want your finger to dry. And then this one we'll put in like this. It can be really difficult to make it so that they stay together. Back to our hurl. Oh, 2 aren't in a row that turn good. These things, sometimes they get twisted and they just don't turn right. It happens. And let's see, we'll just use our hand here with this. These feathers are so small, if you leave any on your desk, it's just going to get blown away and you're going to lose them. And yeah, they're not as expensive. The weaver's not as expensive as Indian crow, that's for sure, but it's not cheap, and it's getting more expensive. As Indian crow gets more expensive, the subs get more expensive. Even subs that are dyed, they're not cheap. I mean, they can be like $5 a feather. The sub. The dyed sub, I mean, because it's a lot of work to make a dyed sub of Indian crow. So it's a real lot of work. Remember, it's red and it's orange and it's black. So think about it. You can't start with a black feather, right? You need to start with like a gray feather or a white feather, and then dye it 3 different times. I mean, how are you going to do that? It's really difficult to do. It's really difficult to do. There are some people out there that do it and really good, but it's expensive. All right, so we got our oval in there, and now I'm going to get, if I can find it, I have a flat one here. Here it is. This is a really old flat one. Make sure right up against that hurl. Stay in there. get all waxed up. This is not really the ideal thread, I think, to use. Probably better would be like an 8/0 uni, just so it has more surface area, but it'll be alright for now. Yellow, orange, red. And we don't need much of each. So here's the yellow. This one, this is seal. I don't have the orange seal. You gotta be careful. When you wax the thread and you put dubbing on it, you gotta make sure you put it right at the top because you can't slide it. It's very important. Sometimes I forget that. Really make sure it's twisted up tight so that when you put it on, they're not hanging over your hurl. So I think it's, judging by the picture, I feel like it's like in this section right here, I feel like it's a quarter yellow, a quarter orange, and a half red. I think that's what it is. Let me look at something here. Yeah, okay, that's good. This yellow matches the yellow hackle I have. So that's good. Now, again, just like last time, I don't have the orange seal. I just got goat, Angora goat. If I remember correctly, it was too long. If you watch the Lord Mayor of London, I use this orange sub, Angora goat. This is the package. I gotta give myself some orange for sure. Let me double check this. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think I like it. All right, so now we got red. This is the same red from the Lord Mayor. Let's get some more wax. Like that. I think that's all right. And now let's bring up the flat. Yeah, they looks like they have 4 turns, which makes sense. One on each quarter. Is it even? It's almost even. that's good. Cut this off. And then we'll take this. Looks okay to me. I don't know if you remember this little end piece. I take, I put it in the bag with the roll. So then when I go back to use that roll, I know that there's a cutoff in there. So this is good. Let's cut this off close. Oh, let's double check it first. And now let's tie it up and make sure that this gut is in good. And then let's switch to black. Let's just make sure it's waxed. I do this one a little bit different, considering this is from the Farlows book and it's a fishing fly. I'm going to do what's called a mixed wing. Now there's two ways to do a mixed wing. And the first is the really tough way, which is you take one fiber from a material, a wing material, say it's just yellow goose or whatever, yellow turkey, and then you take another fiber, single fiber, and you marry it to it. And then you take another single fiber from a separate feather and you marry it to it. And what you're doing is you're mixing all the different colors and materials up into a married wing. That's obviously very tedious. They did it because, one, it was a good way to present the fly. Let's say if you were selling it to somebody, when it looked incredible, you paid a bunch of money for something that you were going to fish, it was like a little extra. It was a little extra that they could charge if it was presented nicely. But if you were just tying it on your own, or maybe if you weren't charging a lot or something like that, they would just put it on already mixed, meaning before they don't fish the actual wing married. They mix it up. They mix up the whole wing and then they fish it. So what they would do with this mixed wing is they'd put it on already mixed as a bundle. And it looks something like this. So it's single fibers. See that? It's single fibers all mixed together. It's essentially pre-mixed. And what you do is you take all the fibers together like I did here, and you separate them, you throw a needle through it, you put a brush through it. This is just a hairline dubbing brush. And you are essentially mixing them all together. And for a fly like this, it's good to do this because there's not much to this wing. It's just yellow, orange, red. So you don't really have much texture. But with this way, it's gonna be good. So this is just red, orange, yellow fibers, turkey fibers I used, and I just mixed them up. You pull them off one at a time, you separate them one at a time, and you just lay them on top of each other, and then you mix them up. And we're going to tie it in just like a normal wing. I'm going to square up these ends first though. If you have some turkey or some materials that aren't very good, this is a great way to use them up. I have a whole bunch of turkey that's not very good. that very difficult to marry. So it works out with this one. It's mixed wings are great for, one, obviously fishing, but two, using up materials that wouldn't look good as a married wing. Now we are also going to put a little bit of an angle on here, and I think I might even do this in sections. So all I'm doing is I'm just putting the thread in. See, I'm just doing like 2 or 3 turns in the center of the bundle. So we know it's tied in better, and then the top one I'll just do a pinch and loop, hopefully, if I can. There we go. And we're still a little hair long, so we'll just trim. We're gonna take some super glue. I can let it go here. Just put it into these cut ends. Just let it soak in there. And then I'm going to tie it down so we can put the throat on next. One thing I'll tell you about these mixed wings is that the way I just tied it on is good because it separates them. A lot of times, if you tie it on in a single bundle, they tend to want to marry again. But if you separate it, like I separated it into what? I put a third on at a time. It does add a little bit of bulk, but it also separates these fibers a lot and keeps them from marrying up, because they can marry. I mean, even if you're using junk, especially if it's turkey, even junk turkey will connect. Now they won't marry nice for a married wing, but they'll just connect on you. And it is what it is, but this one is okay. Alright, throat. Throat is this yellow. Now we're not going to turn it on, we're just going to, although I could turn it on, but I'm not going to. Maybe I should turn it on. Sheesh. How long is this? Let's take a look at this thing. Whew, that's serious. Man, this might be a little bit too long. Alright, well, let's turn it on, and if it's too long, if it's screwed up, we'll go back. I didn't double this over, but that's alright. We don't have to worry about that, because we're gonna, to make this work, we need to go over it with the thread. Do we got a hackle flyer here? We do. Now, I just broke the cardinal rule here. So we're gonna go back about doing, when you do one of these throats like this and you're turning it on, you have to make sure that you leave enough stem so that that first turn has, makes the fibers not really go on top, because you don't want them on top. There's no point in having them on top. So yeah, that's perfect. See how I'm making this turn now, and it's really not, it's not popping out at the top. That's what we want. It just helps you. It helps you like utilize the fibers better. Okay, is that enough? I think it's enough. It better be, because we don't really have much room here. Let's cut this off. And we go back. And if there's any, like I have some that are sticking out on the side, you can cut them or rip them out. It doesn't really matter. And what'll happen is when you do it like this, you know, it's sort of ugly at the top here, but that's not going to matter because you're going to be covering that with crest. Let's do the eyes next. So 2 eyes. I have them set up here. I'll show you your side here. We want them to go right about into the ostrich hurl. I think that's probably a good spot for them. So what we'll do is we'll do your side here. This is good because this is going to cover up part of the. It's a little too long here. Anything that you got going on with the throat, this helps it cover up the side. See that? Now let's make sure we have some wax. We got another one for this side here. Let's just double check that we got the right length. Let's put the crests on. So I have 2 here. I think that's probably the best move, is put 2 on. And am I in the right spot? I think so. So let's put this one on here. Now the way I did this was that I just have a little bend right in there. Another good thing you can do is you take a pair of tweezers and you just smash this stem super thin. When you do that, it like breaks it up a little bit. That's what you want. Cool thing about this wing is that you don't really have to worry about messing it up too much. Right? The whole point is that it is messed up. That's the great thing about it. All right, got this other one here. This one. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay. That's good. Yeah, like some long stem parts here. Cut that off. Alright, the last thing is horns. The horns are this right here. This is from the tail feather of a macaw. So it's blue and yellow. The inside, the part that's going to be facing the fly when you put this on, is the yellow side. And it can be very difficult to put this thing on. The reason is that this fiber is, I already have one set up here. This fiber is T-shaped. You only put one on. Actually, I've seen a friend of mine use two on like a really elaborate fly. It was pretty cool. I've never seen anybody use two, but so you can use two if you're doing a big fly, but this is a small one. So a single fiber, and it's T-shaped. So when it looks like this is the blue, this is the yellow, and it's like laying like this. And it's very difficult to tie something in because this makes it turn. So what people do is they take a pair of tweezers and they really smash the hell out of this until it's flat. I do that, but first I try and cut as much of that yellow part off as possible. And this is really small, so it's very difficult to see how I've done it, but that's what I do. I cut off a whole, I cut it to length, and then I cut a whole, section of that yellow off. And I do that because I want it to lay as flat as possible. I really want it to lay as flat as possible. And I can tell you, it's frustrating to get this on. Sometimes you can just hold it like this, turn it on, and then bring it into place. You're not supposed to see any of the yellow. I mean, a little bit of yellow is not a big deal, but ideally speaking, no yellow. Let's get another one here. Honestly, the hardest part about this stuff is treating it so that it's going to go on flat. Once it goes on flat, it's okay. But yeah, I mean, treating it so that it wants to go on flat, like naturally, it's tedious. Okay. Getting ready to clean up this head, and I ran out of battery. That's all right. Put a new battery in. We fix this head, and we're done. Okay. Let's just check this body. You kind of want to pull out the steel so it blends in with the throat. If it's not pulled out, the throat kind of looks weird. Looks like I got something back here. I don't know what that is, but sort of hidden in here. What is that? Oh, it's like a little piece of floss, I think, or something. Alright, Warrior. Warrior from the Farlows book. I'm really glad I have that book because I never would have found this fly. It's a cool little fly. And I think it's really the perfect mixed wing fly. Because as I said, the wing is just, it's not very intricate. So without doing a mixed wing, it just looks like just 3 slabs of colored material. But this way, you got there's some texture and some definition to it. It's really, it's a lot. It's a great I would say it's a couple things. It's a great first blind eye hook fly, and because of the seal. And then, you know, if you haven't done like a segmented body, this is a good one too because it's only one segment. Yeah, you got this Indian crow problem that that you have to solve. But if you pick up a weaver skin, or a red bishop is the other one. Red bishop is a bird that's just a little bit bigger than a weaver. I'm not sure if they're related or not, but they look very similar. The difference is the red bishop is bigger, but it's also a little bit darker too. Not this color, but the rest of it, like the wings and everything. Yeah. And tie the wing in segments like I did to open it up. It helps it for sure. Let's see what mine looks like. There's no real difference here. Same thing. Yeah. All right. I'll show you this one more time. Farlows, Salmon Flies. Really good book. Really good book. Incredible amount of patterns, and I think you'll learn a lot by just reading. You'll find some cool patterns too, for sure. And I suggest picking it up. It's pricey, but I think, in my opinion, it's worth it. I mean, there's the information alone is really incredible. All right, the Warrior from Farlows. Thanks.